There is an ongoing, almost cyclical injustice in modern football, a statistical blind spot that has allowed one of the planet's most prolific creative forces to be simultaneously celebrated for his output and maligned for his passion. The man at the centre of this storm is Bruno Fernandes, a player who, despite his numbers speaking a language of unparalleled supremacy, finds himself consistently cast in the role of an irritant, a histrionic showman, or, in the parlance of the social media age, a rat. It is a stunning paradox that demands a closer look, because when you strip away the cheap, digestible narratives, you find a man who has, by overwhelming metric, outperformed nearly every peer in chance creation for the better part of a decade. The fact is, since the 2020 season, this singular midfielder has generated an astonishing count of well over 430 legitimate scoring opportunities for his teammates. A figure that stands in isolation when compared to every other player in the top 5 European leagues. When you look at the names immediately below him, you see the true scale of his dominance. Established geniuses like Kevin De Bruyne, Joshua Kimmich, and Thomas Müller are trailing by a significant margin, with Müller's own incredible tally still putting him over 100 chances behind Fernandes. Yet, for all this statistical altitude, the public conversation remains focused on his perceived flaws, his exaggerated remonstrations, and his overall demeanour as a player, completely missing the crucial context that shapes every choice he makes on pitch. We must ask ourselves why a player with such a devastating creative edge is so easily dismissed, and the answer lies not in a deficit of talent, but in an excess of desperation, born from a consistent lack of finishing quality around him. Well, what if the perceived hero ball, or the pursuit of the perfect pass, is not an ego trip, but a calculated survival mechanism? A deep dive into the conversion rates of the chances created paints a stark picture. Over significant stretches of his tenure, Bruno's teammates have demonstrated an alarming propensity to be almost twice as likely to squander one of his meticulously crafted opportunities compared to the finishing. Success enjoyed by his closest statistical rival, De Bruyne. This is not a man who holds the ball, waiting for glory. This is a player who understands that only an utterly flawless, uncontestable pass will be converted into a goal, and his theatrical frustration is not aimed at the referee, but at the institutional inefficiency that renders his world class. Ha ha ha! Efforts moot, his relentless running, his positional flexibility, and his willingness to risk a misplaced pass, a trait often criticised, must be viewed through the lens of a player compensating for the systemic failure of the entire squad. If his scouting report reads like that of a video game legend, it is because he has had to develop into an all-encompassing player just to keep a deeply flawed machine moving forward. The character of this player, the source of his intent. At just 10 years old, he was scouted by FC Porto, only to have the opportunity snatched away because his parents couldn't afford the travel, and the club refused to send a van for pickup. A devastating rejection based purely on circumstance. He didn't quit. Instead, he immediately convinced a rival club, Boavista, that his talent was worth the half-hour drive to his hometown of Maya. Yet, just as he was approaching his final academy years, Boavista was catastrophically relegated to the third tier amid a devastating match-fixing scandal, leaving the club in administrative ruin and failing to notice the gem in its own youth ranks. The years passed without the necessary development, and at the age of 17, in a Hail Mary of desperation, his brother-in-law brokered a contact with a scout in Novara, a relatively unknown team in the Italian second tier. He left his family and his country, having never played a senior professional match, to move 1,000 miles away, the sole foreigner in an all-new academy. To compound this isolation, bureaucratic paperwork issues meant he went unpaid for 8 months, living a monastic existence off a meagre euros 50 a week sent by his mother, barely able to leave his dorm room. The strain was so intense he called home crying nightly, threatening to quit, until his girlfriend, refusing to watch him suffer alone, moved to Italy before she even turned 18. An act of faith that proved to be the turning point in his life and career. This newfound stability saw him rapidly promoted to the first team at Novara, quickly mastering the Italian language and the tactical demands of the senior game. By February, with the club facing an almost certain relegation battle, he was cemented as a regular starter, and his transformative impact was immediate. He single-handedly slingshotted the team up the table, propelling them into the promotional playoffs and earning the nickname Maradona from the club president. His performances drew interest from giants like AC Milan and Juventus, yet he refused to become a bench player for the sake of a famous badge, instead choosing Udinese, hoping to follow the path of development taken by players like Alexis Sanchez. It was at Udinese where he found a true mentor in the legendary Antonio Di Natale, a figure who saw in the young Portuguese midfielder a reflection of his own late-blooming career. Di Natale took him on as a pet project, painstakingly coaching him on the nuances of striking the ball, when to hold it, and when to release it. This mentorship was forged in brutal honesty. Di Natale publicly berated him during their final season together, proclaiming, "He irritates me because he has more ability than any of us. But sometimes he forgets it." This uncompromising tutelage was a pivotal phase in his maturation, ending only when Di Natale himself retired, prompting Bruno to seek a new challenge at Sampdoria. It was his return to Portugal with Sporting CP that truly unleashed the player we see today. He dominated Portuguese football with a ferocity that was almost unprecedented, earning a call-up to the national team just 22 days after his debut. He Sabor. His first season saw him collect 3 Player of the Month awards and 6 Young Player of the Month awards, leading Sporting to a cup title, and within a single win of the Champions League. But this success story took a dark and terrifying turn. On March 15th, 2018, the club's ultras carried out an unthinkable act, with over 50 masked men breaking into the training grounds, armed with knives and steel bars, physically attacking the players and destroying the locker room in an act of civil war. Understandably traumatized, the squad immediately disintegrated, with players like Gelson Martins, William Carvalho and Rui Patricio all terminating their contracts to escape the fear and chaos. Bruno, despite being the league's reigning player of the year and having the most external offers, refused to leave the sinking ship. He came back after the World Cup, and with everyone assuming Sporting was doomed, he produced a season of defiance, scoring 32 goals and registering 18 assists, shattering the all-time record for most goals scored by a European midfielder previously held by the legendary Alex Sosa. This heroic, defiant display earned him the captain's armband, which he immediately used to lead the club to back-to-back cup titles and a return to the Champions League. The eventual move to Manchester United became an inevitability that tested the patience of all parties, with United and Tottenham playing a long game throughout the summer, refusing to meet Sporting's valuation, even after Bruno won the Nations League and to the team of the tournament. He returned to Sporting, dropped a stunning 29 goal contributions in the first half of the season, and forced the Glazers' hand, who desperately needed a creative outlet after Paul Pogba's injury. His arrival in the Premier League was nothing short of seismic. United, sitting in a dismal 7th place with only 9 wins in 24 matches, was instantly rejuvenated. In his first month, he became the first player ever to win both the Player and Goal of the Month awards simultaneously. The momentum was so great that even after the interruption of the global lockdown, he immediately took the Player of the Month award again upon the restart, becoming the first United player since Cristiano Ronaldo to achieve back-to-back wins. He ended that half-season with 20 more goal contributions than anyone else, leading United on a 14-match unbeaten streak that propelled them directly into the Champions League spots. His performance in the Europa League was equally commanding, scoring or assisting against every team he faced, leading to him winning the Golden Boot and being named United's Player of the Year, despite only playing half a campaign. The next season saw him raise his eyebrows in disbelief, as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer named him club captain only 6 months after his arrival, and as if in thanks, he took the league's Player of the Month award yet again, making him the first player in history to win the award 4 times in a single calendar year. By January, with United temporarily at the top of the table, the Football Supporters Association named him the league's Player of the Year, and pundits were comparing his transformative impact to that of Eric Cantona. Yet, as always, the institutional momentum stalled, and the sequence of draws that followed forced the club to settle for a second-place finish. Their best result in 9 years, but a deeply unsatisfying conclusion. The ultimate heartache came in the Europa League final, where, having contributed 5 goal contributions in the semi-finals against Roma, he watched in agony as the team lost the final on a penalty shootout, with the goalkeeper failing to save any of the 11 penalties taken by Villarreal. Even winning a second consecutive Player of the Year award felt insufficient to compensate for the emotional and physical toll he had endured. The subsequent seasons only amplified the chaos. With the return of Cristiano Ronaldo, the club became a spectacle of internal division. Bruno, caught between the clash of Ten Hag and Ronaldo, found himself unfairly criticised. Former United captain Roy Keane publicly demanded he be stripped of the captaincy for waving his arms too much, an absurd criticism levied against the one player who was demonstrably carrying the highest burden. Keane claimed he wasn't enough of a fighter, even in a year where Bruno played the most minutes of any player in world football, ran the furthest of any Premier League player, saved, and was responsible for generating a higher percentage of his team's expected goals and assists, a staggering 25.2%, compared to the next best teammate at a paltry 7%. This man is a statistical anomaly, a marathon runner who is also the team's creative engine. Thus, his commitment became undeniable acts of true leadership, being one of the first players to publicly denounce the European Super League, offering to personally pay for staff members' travel and accommodation after new ownership cut costs, and rejecting a contract offer of euros 100 million a year from Al Hilal, insisting that United was his ultimate dream. He closed out a difficult campaign by putting down 5 goal contributions in the final 5 rounds, culminating in an FA Cup final victory over rivals Manchester City, where he delivered the winning assist. This act of clutch leadership finally forced Keane to backtrack, publicly admitting, "I've been critical of Bruno over the years, but I've been proven wrong. His leadership is outstanding." Even with this late concession, the true scale of his sacrifice only became evident at the end of the most recent season, where United finished with their worst points tally since 1931. Yet, for the first time, you could find headlines calling him a one-man football team. An acknowledgement that he had saved the club from an even more disastrous, near-relegation outcome. This offensive midfielder, while contributing 37 goals and assists, was simultaneously placing among the very top of the charts for defensive metrics, like tackles and clearances, across the top 5 leagues. He is the only player in the Premier League to average at least 2 tackles, 1.5 chances created, 2 shots, and 30 pressures per 90 minutes. You cannot claim he isn't a captain. He did whatever was asked of him, and then he did more. Despite this heroic output, including another campaign where he finished as the top scorer in the Europa League, it felt like his achievements were being relegated, ironically, to a secondary competition. Being dubbed Mr. Europa League feels like an insult, one that even a record 4th United Player of the Year award cannot fully erase. He is a generational talent, a world-class anomaly, and a man whose statistics will one day vindicate his career, proving that he was, despite the chaos, the best playmaker on the planet, regardless of who cared to notice.